Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of ThinkerThemer, this time from the bright and sunny fake grass of Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
Right on the strip.
Right on the strip.
Yeah.
We will film here until we get told off.
Yes.
But hopefully we just look like we're making our little travel blog. Hopefully, but if we suddenly change locations, you'll know why. Anyway, we have had a wonderful time in Las Vegas. I'm so sorry that we are behind in our video content.
Extremely behind.
Extremely behind.
On everything. We're behind on comments. We're behind on
everything.
Like, absolutely everything.
But
we're ignoring it all for the sake of let's just enjoy, be here, enjoy the moment.
Be in our vacation. But actually it feels like we've been in a bit of a time warp because from the moment we landed in Vegas, we have been non-stop. In fact, this might be the only day where we've had free time after almost a week and a half. So, of course, we had Dice Tower West, and we'd love to spend this video telling you a little bit about our experiences at Dice Tower West, the games that we played, as well as what we've been up to since Dice Tower West ended, and so our time in Vegas so far. But let's start with Dice Tower West. It seems like a very fitting place to start. It's what brought us to Vegas.
Yes.
We love Vegas. This is not our first rodeo.
No.
We have been here, I think this is our 10th trip to Vegas. But we've never been able to make it to Dice Tower West, even though it is run by our friend who owns Meepleville, Tim Mativier, and he has been campaigning for us to come.
Yeah.
So we finally made it.
It's a tricky time of year because it's right in the middle of summer in Australia, and usually it's so kind of close after Christmas, and to take time off work, it's usually, but we made it happen.
We made it happen, and I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
Especially after not traveling for so long. It has been an absolute breath of fresh air for so many reasons. But when we first got to Dice Tower West, it was held at the Rio Casino in Las Vegas, and we were greeted by a very warm reception of the Joey fam.
Yes.
And that has been a huge part of what has made this experience
probably say what the Joey fam
so
is
special.
For people that don't.
The Joey fam, if you don't know, is our YouTube channel membership.
Yes.
And being a part of our Joey fam gives you access to the private Discord, which has cultivated this incredibly tight-knit community.
Yeah.
We play together online, we're always chatting, and so we were meeting a lot of people that we've talked to for a year plus.
Yeah.
For the first time in person.
Yeah.
And it went so well.
It was so special.
It was so
great.
incredible. Yeah. And so fittingly, one of the Joey fam, Darlene, organised a meet and greet for one of the first nights at Dice Tower West in her upgraded, beautiful room.
Calling it the penthouse.
The penthouse, which she put on drinks and food, and everyone was invited. And we actually got to meet not only the wonderful Joey fam, but for the first time, we met Tyler and Ilya from Kovray, as well as Jeff and Jamie from Foster the Meeple, which was so wonderful to just have this low-key introduction to everybody, and just have a friendly chat and play a couple of games.
Yeah.
But then from there, it was just a time warp.
I feel like the time both went by so quickly, but at the same time, it's one day would go by and you'd be like, "What? We did that yesterday?" It feels like that was 2 weeks ago.
It really
because it's
does.
You were cramming so much into every moment.
Yes.
But we have the
So
timeline because there's so much to try and remember.
Yeah, and we'll probably still forget things. But first of all, let's start with the library.
The library
of games.
It's huge.
Incredible.
It just goes for days. It's just, I can't actually remember how many different shelves they have.
Yeah, but I think it's 7,000 games.
It's just a ridiculous, and it was something like 75% of that collection came from one person who was moving, and they decided to donate all of their collection to
It's
to
such
the
an
library.
impressive library. But interestingly, the library is only used for Dice Tower West. And so I jokingly said to Tim that we should move here to Vegas and we'll happily look after the library. You can use it for Dice Tower West, but the rest of the time we will make full use of this library of games.
Exactly.
But so that was incredible. And of course you could check out any game that you wanted to check out. And
it's a runaway dog.
There's a runaway dog. Oh, this is going to be an exciting time.
This is great. Oh, he's so cute.
So cute.
Oh, it's so cute. So excited.
Wow, so excited.
Hopefully you can see it.
As excited as we are to be in Vegas.
Absolutely. That's me in Vegas.
It is.
That's me when we first arrived. It was like just running around everywhere. Yeah.
So one of the first games that we played was actually the Oracles of Delphi, which is an older Stefan Feld title, and we have been desperately trying to backfill our knowledge of Stefan Feld games, but we haven't played that many of them. But Daniel from the Game Table, check out him on Instagram. Incredible, Instagrammer.
Great Instagram.
Amazing, amazing content. We were lucky enough to be taught the Oracles of Delphi, and it was the first time we'd played.
Yeah. We played Scout first.
We played Scout first.
Yes, but we'll come back to that one because this is the
Thanks
bigger
for correcting
one.
the timeline that nobody is aware of.
Look, very important
to get the order right.
You can't just go straight into Oracles of Delphi. Like there was a warm-up kind of game.
There was a warm-up game. Yeah. So Scout by Oink Games was the warm-up game, which was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I was going to come back to it. We'll come back to it. So Oracles of Delphi. Yeah, back. I thought this was so interesting because it's essentially a race, which is very weird for a Euro. You usually have what are my ways of collecting points? No such thing. Race. You're actually just racing to complete all these different objectives. And there's a lot of colors involved, which is really interesting. For me, it felt like there's all these layers of color puzzles. And so it's like you need certain colors to be able to take certain actions towards certain colored versions of things. And then when you get to the place that you want to get to, you also need to have the right matching color dice to actually perform that action. So I always felt like I was one layer of color behind. It took me 75% of the game to kind of be like, okay, I get it. Now I know what I'm doing. But I had a great time.
It's a good game. I really enjoy a race because it's hyper competitive. To win the game, you have to be the first one to complete all of the objectives, all of your objectives. But also the action selection system with the dice placement, really cool and interesting. And it's a question of like this spatial. Like, how do I get from one side of the map to the other in the most efficient way possible to fulfill multiple different types of objectives? So it's a super interesting game. The one thing I didn't like about it was Maggie, because this game...
The only thing that would have made this game better is if you hadn't been there.
Less Maggie. Because it is a very AP prone game, and I gave Maggie a subtle nudge throughout the game because you know exactly the dice that you have.
Very impatient,
The dice that you have available to you are known from the end of your turn. And so you have the rest of everybody else's turns to ensure you know what you want to do next. And there are lots of choices in this game, but Maggie was being very distracted by what was going on around her.
There was a lot of stimuli.
And you were not making up your mind about what you wanted to do until it came around to you.
I was that player.
Which was making it a very, very long process.
Yes, in my defense, yes, I was that player that is not thinking of their turn up until their turn comes and they're like, oh, right, what am I doing? Which I'm not usually that player. I do find is quite, annoying. I concede to that. But there was so much stimulation and it was day one. So it was like day one, I'm kind of looking around, I'm trying to it was a huge hall as well, like the main gaming area. It was just so big, and my line of sight was right to the exhibition hall where all the people were setting up with all the different, and so there was a lot. There was a lot to take in.
My only criticism of the game was game length. Like, it's quite a lengthy game, but I feel like once, and we were learning it, of course, but once everybody knows the game, it would move a lot faster. So thank you very much to Daniel for having the patience to teach us that. And Scout.
Scout. I really enjoyed this game, even though there's no real discernible theme. Technically, it's meant to be like a circus theme, and you're like a talent scout for different circus act. It's numbers really, and you're kind of getting sets of numbers from your hand.
But I enjoyed it because you can't alter the order of the cards in your hand, and so you're trying to efficiently get rid of all your cards by playing the best set in a trick, essentially. So it's kind of like trick taking. It's interesting kind of dynamic. I believe it is this Oink game is a reprint of an older game and is a great filler. We will be looking to buy that game as soon as we can. But let's keep going because there are many things to talk about. So I'm just going to go over some games. I'm sorry if we missed like kind of things in the timeline.
And sorry for probably all the distraction as well in the background.
So
and the
much
noise
stuff going on. Hopefully it's not too bad. Lots
Film
of
in
Vegas.
the strip. It'll be fine, they said. Just find a quiet point.
Find a quiet part of the strip. So we played Lords of Vegas. We actually played this with the Joey fam. We had 2 games going on at once. Don was kind enough to teach us. And this is a game that we have owned for a long time. It's been on our shelf of opportunity. And I just haven't had a chance to learn it. It was really interesting because the game relies a lot on negotiation. You're actually able to trade out your casinos. And in this game, you're trying to build up your casinos. But what's interesting is there's a huge element of luck because the way the cards come out dictate the way that things are going to be scored. And a really cool game if you like games that are highly interactive. It's kind of leans party. Like I would say it's kind of a more of a light...
It's more on the lighter side than the heavier side.
I would highly interactive and especially if you like kind of betting against people, and there's that kind of element that will take that. It led to some very hilarious moments of kind of competing with each other, particularly in our game. I don't know about your game, you're in a different game than me, but our game was a little bit aggressive in some moments.
Ours only just got, I would say, only mildly tense a couple of times. It was mostly pretty good. We actually didn't do any negotiating. We decided to just leave that for like second game onwards. But I just love how thematic it was that we were playing Lords of Vegas in Vegas.
It's so thematic. So thank you, Don, for that teach. Another game that we played that had a lot of negotiation in it was Cosmic Encounters. And we had never played Cosmic Encounters before. And as we were setting up, Nacho was teaching us Cosmic Encounters. Tom Vassell happened to walk past. And if you know Tom's preferences in games, you'll know that Cosmic Encounters was one of his favorite games for many, many, many years. And so, of course, he couldn't resist. And he sat down to play with us. So we got to play Cosmic Encounters with Tom Vassell. Very special. And what an interesting game. I can completely see why it has so many fans and why people are very polarized as to whether they enjoy it or not. Because in this game, you are essentially trying to put your little ships onto other people's planets around the table, and the way that you're going to be doing that is through battling, and these battles also engage negotiation as well.
So you can bring allies with you.
You can bring allies
regardless of whether you're attacking or defending. So
you end up creating these alliances that last throughout the whole game, or do they? Because you can also turn your back on your alliances as well. And ultimately there should be one winner, and so there is a bit of backstabbing that goes on.
There can be multiple winners.
Though. There can be, but ultimately you want to be the only winner. And it's just really interesting. It's all asymmetric, which is typically something that we don't enjoy. It also takes place in space, which is something else that we don't enjoy, but played a lot of in this con.
There was a lot of space games
going on. But I just thought that it was just a very novel game in that it's completely different to anything else I'd played before. And I really enjoyed my time with it.
Extremely interactive.
It's not a game I feel like I need to own.
No, I would agree. It's not something that I would choose to play, but I was very, very glad that I got to experience the game flow and like the laughs and the shenanigans and and there's the whole even after a battle is sort of resolved, you can still kind of come from out of nowhere with extra little plus +2 plus to tip the battle in one way or another.
I did find myself constantly siding with Tom because I was going to be on Tom Vassell's side for sure. So at one stage he was like, "Are you going to betray me?" And I was like, "No way. There is no way I'm betraying you at your convention." That is not going to happen. But we had a lot of fun.
That was great. It was a good experience.
We also had a really special dinner on one of the early nights. We went out for dinner with the Joey fam, and they surprised us with a cake, 2 cakes actually, because there were 3 birthdays that were occurring during the time of the con, which is fabulous. But then they also surprised us with Treasure, one of our Joey fam members, gave a little speech about the fact that we had made it to 10,000 subscribers. And they had a beautiful cake there
it was
as
great.
well. And I may have ugly cried because of the speech.
I actually had to exit sign and not look at Amy because otherwise I was going to ugly cry as well. So even though I was at a separate table and
But it was so beautiful and just testament to the wonderful community that has shown us so much support. Absolutely. And we are so grateful for. So we had this beautiful meal out that night and then just from there, we just kept on playing games. You played Dwellings of Eldervale.
I did. Yeah. Dawn taught me, Dwellings of Eldervale, which was really, really interesting because it was one of those games that I had a completely different expectation of what the game was actually going to be. I thought it would be this very, almost inaccessible RPG style, heavy fantasy, and it's actually a very, felt very accessible to me, worker placement with resource management, with really, appealing, I love the wooden pieces, the sound activated stands with the dragons, hilarious, completely unnecessary, but I completely agree. If you can play with them,
completely unnecessary, but it's completely necessary.
It's completely unnecessary, but I would not play without it if I have the choice to play, with it, because it's just it's just silly but hilarious. It just makes sense.
I didn't get a chance to play that one, but we hopefully will be able to do a full review of that because we do have a copy on its way. So looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah, I was surprised.
I don't know what I was doing at the time. I did play a game of Pulsar 2549. Is that the wrong number completely? I've completely forgotten.
Pulsar something.
Yeah, the
2000
Vladimir Suchi game. Another space game. While you were playing a fantasy game, I'm playing a space game. But that was a super interesting game as well. I really enjoyed there's kind of this trying to navigate the network of planets that you're trying to access, because the more planets you can access, the more points you get at the end of the game. But then coupled with that, there's kind of all of these abilities that you can unlock. It relies on, again, dice worker placement. I found it a super interesting game. I can see why a lot of people love it. Again, not a game that I probably need to own just because it's space themed. I don't think you would enjoy the theme so much. But a really interesting game mechanically, and I'm really glad I got to try that.
Nice.
And then what else? I played with Rado and Shay. I got to play a game of Fantasy Realms. And it's the first time I've played Fantasy Realms, and obviously Red Rising was a game that borrowed heavily from the main mechanical idea of Fantasy Realms, and I really can appreciate the amount of game that is packed into that one deck of cards, because in this game you are trying to maximize the synergies of cards in your hand by the end of the game. But it's really beautiful in its simplicity, in that on your turn all you're doing is drafting a card and then putting one back out, and then the game will end when there's 10 kind of left in the pool. So it's really fast to teach, and in fact after I learnt it from Daryl, playing with Rado and Shay, I came back and taught you and some other people, because it's just so easy and accessible, and I really enjoyed it. And I think we'll probably end up with a copy of that in our collection. So that was really interesting and fun. What else did we play? You played Gaia Project.
I did. Well, I started.
Another space
game. So I again, Nacho taught it. So I learned it, and I played probably a couple of rounds of it, and then we had to go somewhere else. So I still haven't fully played a game of it, but it made me really curious to, now we have Terra Mystica at home.
We do have Terra Mystica.
Get that on the table and give it a proper go.
Terra Mystica.
Now I feel like I've got more of an idea.
Terra Mystica has become my monitor stand, so on my desk, and it's good because I have access to my monitor, but it's bad because when I'm working, I'm just staring at that box thinking, why is that in shrink? I want to play that game so badly. So we'll have to make an effort. Hopefully now that you've learned Gaia Project.
It should be easier to get to the table, hopefully.
Terra Mystica will make
the flow should make a lot more sense.
Yes. We also had the opportunity to play with Sam and Katy.
Yes.
From Lord of the Board.
Yeah.
And Monique and Naveen, of course, from Before You Play. Yeah. We had an opportunity to sit down with them and play some really quick games.
Yeah.
We played Parade, which is one of Monique and Naveen's favourites. I believe they were carrying it on them throughout the con. I've never played this card game before, and I enjoyed it so much.
Same. It was quite a great, relatively quick, plays a lot of players, and fast to get to the table. Fun, and in one of those games where essentially you're creating this, it's Alice in Wonderland themed, but the theme doesn't really play much of a part.
It's pretty though.
It is very pretty, yeah. So you're creating this parade of cards, and then you're playing cards to the end of the parade, deciding which card. So the card that you play will determine how many of those cards are safe and how many of them are at risk of you obtaining or them leaving the parade and coming onto your scoring deck, which is a bad thing because you want to actually have the least number of points by the end of it. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. And weirdly, even though it's a very simple concept, it does take you a few rounds to kind of go, wait a second, so all of these are safe, and then which ones is it that would come to me? So it's like same color, so anything after the numbers. So say if you play card number 3, the first 3 cards after the card that you play are safe, and then anything after that, if it is the same color as the card that you play, they would come onto your scoring pile. Or if it's what is it? If it's lower, the same or lower, they'll come. So you might be incentivized to play then higher. Kind of. Well, no. If you play a higher number, this is what I mean.
This is making no sense.
It doesn't make no sense. But it was a really interesting, even though it's simple as the puzzle.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of
It's a lot
tension,
of fun, a lot of tension, and a lot of the times you don't have a good card to play, so you have to play the least bad card. But what's really interesting about the scoring is that it's bad to take cards, but if you do get some cards of one suit, then it's better to double down on that and have the most of that suit by the end of the game, because if you have the most of the suit, it's going to score less for you than if you only have a couple of cards. So that makes it really interesting, and at the end of the game you also get to secretly apply 2 cards from your hand, which means that you might end up having the majority when someone didn't expect you to. And so there's that kind of fun reveal element at the end of the game. So that was really fun. We also played Cockroach Poker.
Yeah, for the first time.
For the first time.
That is
with
so
that
stressful.
That is a stressful game because
so stressful.
All you do in that game is try and offload cards to other people and lie or tell the truth about what they
your
are.
way through the entire thing.
It's entirely bluffing, which is no one's favorite mechanic around the table that we were playing with. Nobody enjoyed it.
Except for the person. Well, no, everyone enjoyed the laughs, but everyone found it very stressful, except for the person who introduced the game and taught it. Yeah.
But I think that was the moment at the con where I laughed the hardest. I think I laughed until I cried at Monique trying to lie her way through that game.
Too pure. This is what I'm saying. She's too pure for this world.
Her heart is too pure for Cockroach Poker. And especially in the last moment where she was trying to convince Naveen that she had not a stink bug.
Yeah.
Or no, that she did have a stink bug. One or the other. But then when she revealed it, she didn't actually realize it was a stink bug.
So,
hilarious.
It was hilarious. Same with Sam from Lord of the Board.
Too pure.
Too pure. I could just look straight into his eyes and go, are you telling the truth? And I could just see it. So it's like,
yeah. You did pretty well, actually, for someone who's usually not good at lying.
Maybe
it's because you were wearing a mask. I couldn't tell if you were lying or not.
I was so stressed, though. I don't enjoy the process of those things at all.
I think it was just Naveen and I that were in our elements.
We
were very calm
stressful.
liars.
Oh my gosh, the adrenaline the whole time. But it does create a lot of laughter.
That was a really fun time. I think we have some friends that would actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Game. We have plenty of friends that would love it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be getting a copy of that.
We also played a game called Hardback, which is interesting because it's in that paperback series. We've actually never played paperback. I think it's a game by Tim Fowler. Hardback is a card drafting game. You're buying cards, but it's a deck builder. And the deck is made up of letters, and you are going to be trying to spell words using the cards that you're drawing from your deck, which of course you're then trying to bulk up with more cards of different suits and different powers to make your words that you're making even more powerful, more interesting, and work for you. Really interesting combination of deck building and like a word game. And typically we don't play a lot of word games because they tend to be on the lighter party style of things, but this was actually quite thinky in the way that you had to leverage what was coming out of your deck.
I enjoyed
You love deck builders.
I love deck builders.
And you were very good at this game.
Apparently.
She won.
Yeah. So, because there's this whole thing of there's also as you're playing these letters, you're also trying to find synergies. They all have icons on them, and if you match some of those icons on the word that you make, you actually trigger additional abilities. So you get kind of either added points or more more currency to buy more letters. And so very, very interesting. I do not enjoy Scrabble. Because, and in general, I don't like word games.
Yeah.
This I would play anytime because it's like that element of like that strategy and that all this other actions that you're getting to take. I really enjoy that.
So if you enjoy word games, definitely check that out. It's a kind of gamer's word game. Thank you, Craig, for teaching us that.
Yeah.
And then another game I played, which was Majesty of the Realm.
You love
Majesty
that game.
for the Realm or of the Realm. I can't remember.
Don't know, I didn't play
but it is a game by the designer of Splendor, Marc-Andre. And I had never heard of it. And apparently it kind of went under the radar. And it was an interesting favorite of the group that we were with, the Joey fam that we were playing with. Don and Adrian taught us the game.
Yeah.
Taught me the game. You weren't there.
I wasn't there.
But it was also a fan of some of the rest of the a favorite of some of the other Joey fam.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting game because it's all about the way that you draft these villages into your village, and all of the villages have different abilities and different ways that they score. And when you draft it in front of you, it activates, a lot of them activate either points to score yourself or something that interacts with other people's tableau of villages. And it's really fast, it's really easy. All you're doing is adding a villager into your village, but at the end of the game you're going to have points for the majority of types of villages that you have, and also just all these interactions of like there's a card that kind of attacks other people, but then you've got to have enough defense. So there's all these interesting choices along the way about how you build up your village. I really enjoyed this game.
She would not stop talking about it. She really, really, really. So I think it's definitely going to be one of those.
Probably definitely a game that we'll pick up and one that will feature on Small Talk at some stage. It's a game that I really enjoyed, and it's just that great like Splendor mid-weight level where I feel like I could teach it now after playing it once. Really, really enjoyable.
Nice.
And
you
then
also plays Furnace.
I did play Furnace as well. Yeah,
my legs going to sleep.
I played
trying
Furnace.
to figure out a way of like sitting in this.
I did make some purchases at Dice Tower West. There wasn't a lot of publisher stalls, but one thing that I heard along the grapevine was if you can, pick up the playmat for Furnace because it's really hard to find. As soon as someone said it's really hard to find, I was there.
So the magic words for Amy.
I went straight there. Bought the playmat for Furnace before I had ever played Furnace, nor do we currently
still don't
own
it. We just still don't own
it.
We
own the playmat and not the game. But I did get a chance to play it. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't play with the advanced rules, which I think I would teach you with the advanced rules.
Yeah.
But it's just a really interesting game, kind of like an engine building game where you are just collecting cards. It's an auction game. You're trying to get resources to buy other cards and then to ultimately convert it to money because that's the victory points in the game. It's really fast, it's really interesting, and it's actually quite simple. It's quite simple. It's just really interesting the way the auction plays out because if you win the card, you get to use the card for its future benefit. But if you lose the auction, you get to take the resources that the card provides. So there's this tension between do I want to win the card or do I just want to lose in the auction and get the resources. So really interesting game. Looking forward to picking up the game when we get home and exploring it more.
Nice.
We also played with Crystal Dax from the Dice Tower. And obviously she has podcasts, there's a lot of wonderful things. She was
Twitch,
she was a friend that we made very early on when we started making content, and we got the opportunity to sit down and play some games with her. We played a game called Haifu, I believe it was called.
Trick-taking game.
A Japanese trick-taking game.
And
where the objective of the game is you want to win exactly 2 tricks. If you win 3, you go bust. If you don't win 2, you don't score. So a really interesting balance of having a mixture of high cards and low cards in your hand. A really fun game. I really enjoyed that. I don't believe you can get it anywhere in Australia or the US. Probably need to get it when we're in Japan.
That is the first trick-taking game that I've been so bad at. I scored 0 points over multiple rounds. No points were scored by me at all.
But it was fun. It was a good time.
It
was a good time. And we also played a game called French Toast.
I love the concept of this game, like the premise. Well, in French Toast, you are aliens whose first encounter with humankind was French toast. So that's all you have, like everything that you come across, you're trying to compare it, like, you know, how is it like French toast, which I love. Like that's such a quirky little. But essentially, what happens in the game is there's going to be like a keyword, a particular thing. So, for example, it might be bat, and so all the things so there's kind of like a game master that knows what the word is. And all we're going to be doing is we're going to be going like person to person, kind of saying, well, you'll say kind of like a word. So you'll say, I don't remember even what I started with, I think.
But say you say refrigerator. So it's like, is it more like a refrigerator or French toast?
Yeah, and so all they're going to say is they're going to repeat whichever
They'll say
reference.
Refrigerator. And then someone's like, okay, so it's like a refrigerator. Or maybe it's an appliance. Washing machine. Is it more like a refrigerator or a washing machine? And it's a deduction game where you're ultimately trying to get to that end goal.
That key word.
With a few other clues. A really interesting kind of party game. I think you would like it if you like games like Just One and that kind of, word game.
I feel like it's much harder than Just One.
Yes.
Like the barrier to entry is a little bit higher because you can get stuck on, there's no real...
But very accessible because all you're doing is things that are like something else.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
That was a good game. We very briefly jumped in on a game of trophies, which was another
that was
party game where...
Just essentially getting a letter and
I came into it very late.
Yeah, you did. So you're essentially getting a letter and the person that's pulling out the letter is just reading out a category. So it's
it's like categories but live.
Yeah, and so everyone just screams out the first thing that comes to mind that starts with that letter, and whoever is the first person to say something that's valid in that category that starts with that letter gets the card, and that's how you keep track of points.
Very simple game.
Very, very simple.
You played Obsession, of course you did.
Yes.
There were people who desperately wanted to play Obsession with you.
Had a nice game of Obsession.
And you got to have a good game of Obsession. At the same time you were at Obsession, I was spending all of our money at the flea market.
This is true.
There was a flea market. I was very happy to line up for that flea market. And then I had some helping hands carry some of my games because I came back to the table with a large pile. I was so caught up in the frenzy that was the flea market that I may or may not have purchased 2 games that I already own.
And one of them may be the one Christmas present that I gave you. It's like we were only allowed to buy.
Which one it was.
We only were allowed to buy one game for one another, and I bought Aquasphere. And there it was, like secondhand, rebought again. But this is what was funny. Like I was just playing Obsession, and I'm like having fun, and then I see one of our friends coming over with this pile of games, and they just dump them on the table. It's like, oh, you've done well at the flea market, ha 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 ha. And they're like, no, this is Amy's pile.
This is Amy's first pile.
Say what now?
Yeah, because we have limited luggage.
Yeah,
and it's been a little bit. They've just fit at the moment, and we haven't even finished our shopping in the US. So.
This is precarious.
Yeah, but I did pick up a lot of games for a really cheap price. It's actually really hard there's no like central flea market or that kind of thing in Australia.
It's really hard.
So it's very rare to have the opportunity to buy secondhand games at such a discount en masse.
Yeah.
And so I did pick up quite a few games like the expansions for Seven Wonders Duel because we've never played them. They're very expensive in Australia, so I was excited to pick up both of those in Shrink. Luna. A copy of Luna, a copy of Freshwater Fly, a copy of Newton. So there were lots of big box games that I managed to pick up that I'm really excited.
They take a lot of space.
They take a lot of luggage. That's why we brought extra luggage. So of course for the games. Okay. We also had a game of. This one might interest you. You may have heard of it, but there is a game launching on GameFound that is the designer is Roy Cannaday from the Dice Tower. Yes. And that game is called Last Light.
Yes.
And the game is advertised as a 4X that can be played in under an hour.
True.
And we played a 6-player game with Ruel, which was amazing to meet Ruel, and some others. We played a 6-player game of Last Light that went for 58 minutes, excluding the teach, which was a very fast teach. Because this game is really interesting in that it's a 4X game where all of the actions that are played out simultaneously. So you have a deck of cards that is going to enable you to do things in the game, but you all select those simultaneously and everyone plays out their actions, which means you get a lot done in this game in a very short amount of time. Yeah. And it simultaneously feels like a really significant experience because you're doing so much in the game,
Yeah.
but then it is over
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah.
So much happens.
Very efficient.
Yeah, and so you, of course, are moving out, you're exploring, getting the benefits of exploring, then you're
Yeah.
trying to take ownership of planets, and ultimately you're trying to collect light. That is the goal of the game. The first person to get to 20
Yeah, I think from memory, 20 light. Yeah.
fragments is going to be the winner of the game.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. It was
Yeah.
really aggressive, so of course you have to be into that style of game. We'll talk about this game a lot more
Yeah.
in the lead up to the Game Found campaign, or once that launches.
Yeah.
But from first play, I think this is going to be a really big hit,
Yeah,
and
I
one to
agree.
look out for, especially if you enjoy space, which
Forex
we
games. Yeah.
and Forex games, which we've never played. We still enjoyed it in spite of those two things.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that. That is coming up.
Yeah.
Then Maggie left me one night and went to Katy Perry.
I did, which I loved. I said after 10 trips to Vegas, and we don't gamble, so most of what we do is we go see shows. This was by far my favorite most Vegas-y Vegas show I have ever seen. Ever. Including, like, we've seen, Cirque du Soleil stuff, we've seen regular shows, we've seen this was just like the scale of, we've seen other residencies, the scale of the production, and then I realized why as well, like the range of emotions that I went through. Obviously, like, all the songs because she's put all the greatest hits in there, but I realized it's because it's the single most thematic concert I've ever been to. The entire thing had a full story arc, and it's got like almost like Pixar style animations tying it all together to bring the story together. So it was just to the point where we're going again. Like, I'm taking Amy.
We're going tomorrow because I didn't go to the concert, not because I really didn't want to see Katy Perry, but I was at a con.
Yeah, you didn't want to miss out on the gaming.
I didn't want to miss out on
time.
that gaming. I get FOMO very badly, and so I wanted to be there where the action was. And do you know who took me under their wing? Monique and Naveen.
I mean,
we've talked about them a lot, but can I just say, these two are exactly what you expect of them,
if not
and
better.
more. They are such a very privileged to be able to call them our great friends. I had so much fun with them while you were off having the time of your life at Katy Perry.
Living.
We got a chance to play 3 different games, actually. Yeah. I played a game called Blue Lagoon, which is a Michael Kiesling game that I had never played before. And it was really fun because it reminded me a lot of Kahuna in that it's deeply aggressive. And I have to say, for great friends, Monique and Naveen did a lot of cutting me out of that game. They taught me and I came last.
Brutal.
But to be fair, they knew that I was after an aggressive area control game.
Okay.
And yeah, it's really interesting because it's in 2 phases where you are basically trying to take ownership of islands, and you're really trying to cut other people out of the equation to race to resources, and then also to have area control. And then the second half of the game plays out in exactly the same way, only you're more limited in where you can move. So it's a really interesting game, one that I definitely will need to add to my collection because it is so mean, but also very fast and easy to teach, and I enjoy games like that. Another game that we played that we have never played before is a game called Magic Maze, which of course is a very old game and one that is very popular.
Co-op, isn't it?
Very popular co-op. However, it's real time, and because it's real time, I don't mind so much. When there's a time pressure, just like in an escape room, I don't mind that kind of game. This was so stressful, and I also had the added pressure of it was the first game we played, and I didn't want to let Monique and Naveen down. I was like, I am going to be terrible at this. Oh, and I was, because in this game you have different things that you're in control of. You're trying to navigate all of these different pawns through a maze to get to different locations, but each of you only has one direction that you can move, and so you all have to be in sync, taking your turn when it's your time to take a turn. And if you don't, there's this little hammer marker thing that you can just slam down in front of the person that's not doing what they're meant to be doing.
Oi!
So stressful because
pay attention.
Because there's this
Do your
Because
thing.
Monique's like tapping this thing in front of me, and I'm like, what am I meant to be doing? I don't know. Please don't hate me.
Yeah.
It was very stressful, but it was a lot of fun. And I think we won with a little bit of like, I think we made that time just in time, but probably not really.
Yeah.
And the third game we played was Animal Kingdom, and that was a really interesting game that apparently was on Kickstarter. I had never seen it before, but it's a game where you are just playing cards from your hand into a central area, which is going to have an area control game attached to it. But the rules of where you're allowed to place cards change. It's really interesting, lots of variability in the game. So for example, one area might be you're only allowed to play the same suit here, and when you play a card that meets that condition, you get to add one of your markers to the area control game. And that's basically how this whole game plays out. It's super interesting, beautiful artwork.
Yeah.
And I got to play with Dwayne.
Oh, Dwayne.
Dwayne from Blackboard Gaming, who, when I heard that Dwayne and Alicia were at the con, I dropped all of my stuff and I ran across the con to have the best hug ever. They are fabulous people, and I'm so glad that we got to finally meet them.
Nice.
So that was that night of gaming where you were at Katy Perry.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to going to Katy Perry tomorrow night, but it's not going to be any Mariah Carey, let's be honest.
Look, that's fair.
She doesn't even need to dance or put on a show.
Well,
she just is.
She just sort of shimmies across the stage and then just belts out the tunes.
Anyway, but I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of shows, we got to see some shows at Dice Tower West. We went and saw Paula Deming's improv.
Nailed it.
Improv.
So good.
The Paula Deming show was her doing a one-woman show, essentially, with a pianist. And it was all people giving ideas about game-related topics and her turning them into a song, improv.
So talented.
So talented.
I was that person that was just like laughing non-stop, to the point where like people were kind of like turning around going, are you okay?
Embarrassing. She was rolling around in the aisles.
Like knee slapping. Like, this is just so
up,
good.
laughing.
So relatable.
Yeah.
So talented.
So talented.
On the spot. Like,
it made me want to give up on content creation, that's for sure. She's just so talented. It's just everyone should pack up and go home.
Yeah.
She was fabulous.
Yes.
We also went and saw the R&R show live, which was amazing. So Rado and Ruel, we got to see them, and they just did like a Q&A. They kind of did their show but live, which I've been really enjoying on Twitch lately. It happens to be one of the only shows on Twitch that streams at 7 a.m. Australian time, which is perfect when I'm getting ready for work or lying in bed trying to avoid work. But it was so much fun. At one stage, Rado jumped off the stage though with a collective gasp of like, is he okay? But I think he was okay.
He was okay, he was a bit puffed after for a little bit.
He did go for a run as well, but
he recovered. He had to go for a massive run right before the show. I think it was some technical thing that he needed to fix. So
but speaking of running, actually we did have another opportunity to play a game with Rado. We played the game Formosa Tea, which is a very complex Euro set in Taiwan, where you are using you're using worker placement to draft tea or these pieces that represent tea cubes, and then you're going to be trying to craft the best quality tea by drying it out and adding scent to it, and then you're going to sell those to the markets, domestic and international markets.
Ship them away or sell the cheap stuff.
Very quite complex to get your head around the way the game works, but once you do, it's actually a really interesting game. We actually bought a copy of it while we were here, and hopefully we can get that reviewed. But we had a great game of it with Andrew and Rado, and but what happened was, this was towards the end of the con, at the very end of the con, and there was some really bad weather across the states, and a lot of people's flights were being cancelled or delayed. And I happened to mention to Jen, Rado's wife, is your flight okay? Because a lot of people have had flight delays. And she looked it up. She's like, no, our flight's fine. And we're like, okay, good. So we kept playing. Not 15 minutes later, she said, our flight's been cancelled. And then Rado and Jen spent the next hour on the phone trying to get on a flight, because they said the next flight's not for 5 days.
Like a couple of days, and they got pets at home, and they got that they had to get back to.
Really bad.
Very stressful.
Anyway, so we were getting towards the end of the game, and then they found out they had to get to the airport within an hour in order to get on some list or standby or get on a flight. And so there was this complete panic of trying to pack down Jen's incredible, like, her glass. Her glasswork,
of which
store.
I bought so much.
You bought so many earrings.
I'm wearing them now. Yeah, I love them.
So we helped them basically grab everything, shove it into suitcases, and then we just helped them run to an Uber. Yeah. So it was a very chaotic end to our Rado game experience, but it was they made it. So that is good. Very lucky. We also went and saw Penn and Teller while we were at the Rio, and that was kind of part comedy, part magic.
Yeah,
that was really fun to go with some people at the con. What else did we do? We played, we were playing from like 8 a.m. in the morning through to 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It was just an absolute time warp.
Never expected that, you'd still have mental capacity that late in the evening to play games, but somehow my goodness, I've learned so much about correctly fueling my body. Yes, there were so made a lot of errors initially of not hydrating enough, not fueling enough. 5 minutes to eat a burger. Yeah, in between games. You have to disaster. Have more planning and pace yourself. Yeah, but we played some amazing at the very early morning hours of the con. Of course, everyone wants to play more light games, and so we had some really great late night games of Pit. So that really old game of Pit where it's all about negotiation and swapping cards. Like a stock market. And then you ring the bell when you've got it. We did that. And we also played a game called Finger Guns, which was a game that I picked up at the flea market, and very grateful to have Adrian there, one of the designers of Backyard Chickens that was recently on Kickstarter, who was moderating our games of Finger Guns. And can I just say, that absolutely made the experience. That was great. Yeah, because he just was so good at keeping track of who was shooting who, because in this game, you all at the same time basically make guns or finger guns or make grenades or all these different finger gun kind of actions at other people around the table. But what's silly, but hilarity ensues. Hilarious, because you've only got a certain number of lives. Everyone's trying to attack everybody else. Yeah. And the really fun part about it is a round starts as soon as anyone around the table says 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And so it would just be silence, and then someone would just say 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And everybody then has to remember what they wanted to do. Yeah. And it just, if you don't do it in time, then you don't play that round. It was super fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I actually wasn't playing. I was just observing, and even that was fun. Yeah. Too much fun for me. I didn't play it. No, I don't like fun in games. Maggie really hates fun. When I did my profile, I'm 0% fun. So I'm like, no. I'm gonna sit this one out. Just gonna watch. I've got so many other games in here that I played. I played Nidavellir, which was fun. Cult Express, which we've played before. It was lots of fun. Let's see. We taught Dominant Species, which went till 3 a.m. Maggie actually went to bed. Yeah. And someone else subbed in for her. I was like, because someone come and it's bedtime, and that's when I had my early game of Obsession in the morning, so I'm like, I need to be ready for my game. I was super overconfident at my ability to teach Dominant Species at 1 a.m. in the morning. I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. I've had Coca-Cola, caffeinated. It was you did it. Oh, it was probably one of the worst teachers that I've ever given. And I had to refer to the rule book, and I was like, why isn't my brain working? So that was a lesson. But it's 3 in the morning. And your brain is shutting down. It was. As it should. I was there, but I wasn't really there. It's an out-of-body experience. Yeah. What else? Let's see. We also, we met a lot of people. We did. We got to meet Tim Trong. Yes, that was great. Which was amazing. Yeah. Theo as well. The brothers Murph were there, and we got to hang out with them. Russ from Chits and Giggles. Mm-hmm. There were so many different content creators. We did a panel ourselves. Yes. With Reiner from 1 Minute Board Games and from Daniel from the Game Table, where we talked about the state of content creation, which was just so much fun. Yeah, that was great. So much fun. Such a great people to chat to as well. It was so great to learn from them and their experience. And we had a very supportive crowd of people kind of cheering us on, which was really helpful. Because the room was very intimidating. Yeah. That room. The size of it. It's like, Yeah, and you played a prototype. You played a prototype called Motif. Yeah, that was really by Nathan. Yeah, that was really. You were playing that while I was playing some of the lighter party games. I think that was also the kind of the last days of the con. Yeah. And then since then, we spent a few more days with some people who were still, some of the Joey fam who were still hanging around. Yeah. We got to go to Area 15 Omega Mart, which is this art installation here in Vegas, which is like a fake supermarket that kind of has
supernatural,
all very
sci-fi
futuristic.
themes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the future. What do you call it? When it's not utopian, it's like a dystopian. That's it. Well done. Yes, a dystopian, futuristic sort of thing. But
that was really
the social commentary essentially built into like the individual products and things was really, really cool. Really,
clever.
Interesting. Yeah.
We did the Hunger Games exhibit.
We did.
Not because I'm such a huge fan of Hunger Games, but
enjoyed the
because
Hunger Games.
it had digital archery.
That was the
I was
best.
there for the archery.
Yeah,
and
I
was
loved it.
So much fun.
I would do that. I think when we get back to Melbourne, we're just going to look into some archery.
We've triggered a new hobby for Maggie. You know how Maggie
doesn't
loves
take
hobby.
much, but yeah. But
we
really
did
fun.
6 or 7 escape rooms.
We did, yes.
All different types of escape rooms. It's been really
out
fun.
Of all of them.
Sorry, we escaped.
Did. We
from
escaped all of them. Yes.
It's always like a nice boost to your sense of self to have a game master tell you that, wow,
well
you did
done.
that really fast. Even though they say that to everybody, it feels good.
You did really well.
Yeah, you should get a photo together. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please tell us that we're good.
Give me validation, please.
Mapleville. We went to Mapleville, which is so nostalgic for us. We played some games there. We played Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, which was hilarious, and Maggie hates that game.
I hate that game, but it is a very good, it is a very fun game. Every time it's hilarious. I hate fun, so we know this.
You do. We went to see Shin Lim, a magician here, who was on America's Got Talent.
Yes.
Along with Colin Cloud, so 2 people that I've really wanted to see their performance of. What else do we do?
We went to RuPaul's Drag Race Live.
We went to RuPaul's Drag Race Live. It was so good.
It's like being in a full episode of RuPaul's Drag Race.
We had so much fun. They were excellent, and it's just such a great show. Really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And now the weather's been getting really nice, as you can see.
Now it's sunny. It's still cold.
It's still cool, but in the sun, which we are right now, it's getting quite warm.
Yeah.
So we're enjoying just like hanging kind of poolside and getting some sunshine. So we're starting to relax a little bit now.
Yeah.
Although I have a feeling that we're about to get up and move again and get moving. We're going fishing this weekend.
We are. Very exciting.
Can you believe we're going fishing in Vegas of all places?
I know.
One of our friends here in Vegas has decided to take us to a lake, and we're going very early in the morning. So we've got Katy Perry.
I'm not looking forward to that.
Katy
very
Perry,
early,
and then a 6 a.m. start on our fishing. But when in Vegas, don't stop.
Just have to fit everything in.
Fitting everything in. I want to say thank you so much for your patience with us. It is a bit difficult for us to film and prepare for filming and do, of course, all of the editing when we're on vacation. We don't have our powerful computer. It makes things a little bit trickier, so please bear with us while we're a bit slower this month. But we hope that you enjoy these little travel updates that we're trying to fit in. We are going to attempt to get an episode of Back Chat done for next week, because there has been so many campaigns out there that are quite interesting.
We're really behind.
We just need to catch up and film that and get into the editing of it. So thank you so much for your patience and for all of your support. If nothing else, this trip has taught us that the relationships that exist between us and you all on the other side of this camera, on the other side of the world, are real.
Real, yes.
Rare, probably rare.
Very,
Rare,
it's a rare thing to have
extremely
in life.
Genuine.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Our heart is so full, and we look forward to updating you and talking to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.